Space had learned to fear the Empire. For 300 years, wherever the Imperial Armada arrived, resistance ended. Worlds surrendered before the first shot. Moons burned if they hesitated. Entire civilizations vanished and became footnotes in Imperial records. So when the Armada arrived at the edge of the Sol system, no one in the galaxy expected anything different. Thousands of warships tore out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Dreadnoughts the size of cities. Carriers packed with strike craft. Command vessels layered in shields no known weapon had ever broken. The stars around them bent slightly from the mass alone. At the center floated the Imperial flagship, a monument of steel and authority. From its bridge, High Commander Verex studied the blue-green planet below. "Confirm the target," he said calmly. The response came instantly. Planet designation, Earth. Native species, human. Industrial level, moderate. Military capability, insignificant by Imperial standards. Verex allowed himself a thin smile. He had heard of humans. Loud. Divided. Always fighting each other. A species that wasted its intelligence on internal conflict. They did not attend the last 3 galactic assemblies, an aide added. Most records list them as politically irrelevant. Forgotten, Verex said. As expected, the Armada spread into siege formation. Thousands of weapon systems powered up, glowing like distant stars. The Empire broadcast its standard conquest message across all frequencies, visual, audio, and data. This world is now under Imperial authority. Power down all weapons. Prepare to submit. Resistance will result in planetary cleansing. The message echoed toward Earth. There was no reply. On the surface, cities went dark. Imperial sensors lit up with reports. Power grids shutting down. Communications fading. Satellites changing orbit. Laughter rippled across the bridge. "They're panicking," one officer said. "Primitive reaction. They're hiding." "Typical," Verex replied. "Begin Phase 1. Limited orbital strike. Target uninhabited regions. Break their will without wasting resources." Before the order could be executed, a junior sensor officer stiffened. "Commander, we're detecting movement." Verex turned. "Explain." "Objects activating in high orbit. Old satellites. Debris fields. We thought they were dead systems." The tactical display shifted. Thousands of small markers appeared around Earth. Ancient machines, some centuries old, powering up one by one. "They're activating junk," an officer scoffed. "They're desperate." Then the first Imperial ship went dark. No explosion. No warning. One moment its shields were stable. The next it was drifting, powerless. "Report." Verex snapped. "Unknown energy interference. Weapons offline. Engines are unresponsive." A second ship followed. Then a third. Across the Armada, confusion spread as systems flickered. Not all ships, only specific ones. Command relays. Sensor hubs. Fleet coordinators. "They're targeting structure," someone whispered. Verex felt a flicker of unease. "That's not possible. They don't have the tech." Another officer spoke, voice tight. "Commander, the pattern is deliberate." On Earth, underground command centers came alive. Human officers moved with calm focus. No shouting. No panic. Screens showed Imperial formations, highlighted in layers of color. Weak points. Command chains. Predictive movement paths. A human admiral watched silently. "Begin containment," he said. In space, small human ships emerged from the shadow of the planet. They were few. Their hulls were plain. Their weapons looked outdated by Imperial standards. Imperial gunners laughed. "They're sending scraps." The human ships did not attack. They ran. They scattered in different directions, slipping between Imperial formations, pulling enemy ships after them. "They're retreating," an officer cheered. "Pursue," Verex ordered. "Crush them." The Armada tightened its net. That was when the second layer activated. Space itself seemed to shiver. Imperial ships attempting to accelerate found their drives lagging, as if moving through thick fluid. Hyperspace calculations failed. Navigation errors stacked faster than systems could correct. "What is happening?" Verex demanded. No one had an answer. Then the human ships turned around. Not as one, but in waves. Each strike was precise. Short. Lethal. Human weapons punched through shields at exact stress points, collapsing defenses before Imperial crews could react. Ships lost weapons, engines, or life support in seconds. Not destroyed. Disabled. Boarded. Imperial soldiers, trained to fight terror and chaos, faced something worse. Silence. Human boarding teams moved efficiently. No taunts. No hesitation. Targets secured. Commanders captured alive. One Imperial captain, restrained on his own bridge, stared at the human soldier in disbelief. "You should be afraid," he said weakly. The human did not answer. Back on the flagship, alarms layered over each other. "We're losing coordination," an officer shouted. "Command ships are down. Fleet response is fragmented." Verex slammed a fist into the console. "They're not fighting us. They're dismantling us." A final alert flashed across the main display. New signals detected. Thousands of them. They were not weapons. They were messages. Ancient human beacons, hidden across the system, activating all at once. Broadcasting into deep space. Broadcasting outward. Verex read the translated header. Sol system status. Active defense engaged. His blood ran cold. "Commander," an aide said quietly. "These signals, they're not warnings." "What are they?" "They're confirmations." Verex looked at Earth again. At the calm blue planet that had not fired blindly. That had not begged. That had waited. For the first time in his career, the High Commander of the Imperial Armada understood something was terribly wrong. And somewhere deep in the human command network, a single line of text appeared on every screen. Phase 1 complete. The Armada had come to conquer Earth. And the humans were only just beginning. The Imperial Armada had never known confusion like this. Across the Sol system, thousands of ships drifted out of perfect formation. Not broken, disconnected. Command links failed in staggered layers, as if an invisible hand were peeling the fleet apart one nerve at a time. Orders sent from the flagship arrived late, corrupted, or not at all. High Commander Verex stood rigid on the bridge, eyes locked on the tactical display. "What is our status?" he demanded. A senior officer swallowed it. "We've lost contact with 12% of the fleet. Engines are functional, but coordination is collapsing. Our predictive models no longer align with enemy movement." Verex's jaw tightened. "Then update the models." "We can't. They keep changing." That made no sense. No species changed tactics mid-engagement at this scale. Fleets followed doctrine. Doctrine followed history. History followed power. Humans were breaking that order. Near Earth, human ships continued to move like fragments of a shattered mirror. They appeared weak, scattered, almost careless. But every Imperial ship that chased them lost something vital: sensors, weapons, navigation, or command access. Imperial gunners fired anyway. Most shots missed. Human ships moved just ahead of firing solutions, never fleeing blindly, never charging recklessly. They slid through space with an understanding that felt personal, as if they knew where Imperial weapons would be seconds before they were fired. On one Imperial cruiser, the captain shouted orders as targeting systems flickered. "Lock them down. Predict their vector." The console officer shook his head, panic creeping in. "They're not following vectors. They're reacting to us." A moment later, the cruiser went dark. Not destroyed, just turned off. Inside the ship, gravity failed. Lights died. Emergency systems struggled to engage. Before the crew could regroup, hull cutters bit into the metal like surgical tools. Human boarding teams entered. They wore no symbols of rank visible to the eye. Their armor was functional, scarred, and unadorned. Their movements were fast but controlled. No wasted motion. No shouting. One Imperial Marine raised his weapon. A human stunned him without looking. Another tried to run. A door sealed before he reached it. The Imperials had trained for brutal resistance, savage enemies, screaming chaos. They had not trained for this. Calm, quiet, efficient. Back on Earth, deep beneath stone and steel, the human command network adjusted in real time. Rows of analysts watched enemy behavior unfold like a solved puzzle. A young officer frowned at his screen. "They're adapting faster than projected." An older commander nodded. "Of course they are. They're not stupid. Then why is this still working?" The commander's eyes remained on the display. "Because they're adapting inside their assumptions. We are not." He turned slightly. Initiate Phase 2. Across the system, something subtle changed. Imperial ships that had been left untouched suddenly found their long-range sensors flooded with ghost contacts. False fleets. Phantom signals. Entire formations that appeared real, complete with heat signatures and drive emissions. Verex stared at the chaos blooming across the display. "What is real?" he demanded. No one answered. Commander, an aide said carefully. Our outer fleets are reporting human ships in places they cannot be. That's impossible. Yes, sir. That is what they're reporting. Imperial doctrine demanded an overwhelming response. So Varex ordered reinforcements. Fleets shifted, lines bent inward, and every movement created new gaps. Human forces flowed into those gaps like water. They did not destroy the Empire's strength. They removed its control. One by one, Imperial command nodes fell silent. Fleet captains found themselves isolated, unable to confirm orders, unable to retreat, unable to understand the battlefield as a whole. Fear spread, not the sharp fear of death, but the slow fear of blindness. An Imperial intelligence officer leaned close to Varex. Commander, we are receiving something. A transmission? No. Data packets. Openly broadcast. No encryption. From Earth. Yes. Varex hesitated, then nodded. Display it. The screen shifted. It was not a threat. It was a record. Battle simulations. Engagement histories. Predictive models. Imperial models. Human analysts had reconstructed Imperial doctrine in frightening detail. Every maneuver. Every fallback. Every escalation pathway. They knew how the Empire fought. They knew how it was. This is impossible, Varex whispered. These are classified. They're older, the officer said. Some are centuries old. They show long-term pattern analysis. Varex's blood chilled. They've been studying us. Yes, sir. For how long? The officer hesitated. Possibly since first contact. Before they were even acknowledged. The laughter from earlier felt distant now. Embarrassing. On Earth, a human strategist spoke quietly. They're realizing it. Good, the Admiral replied. Then they'll make their mistake. As if on cue, Varex straightened. All fleets, he ordered, voice sharp with regained authority. Converge on Earth. Overwhelm their defenses. They cannot disable us all at once. It was the correct decision, by Imperial logic. It was also the one humanity had planned for. Imperial ships surged inward, tightening their formation, overlapping shields, reinforcing command links the old way, through proximity. The moment the formation compressed, Earth's ancient satellites shifted orbit. Not firing, aligning. A low hum rippled through space. Invisible to the eye, but devastating to Imperial systems. A resonance cascade spread through the fleet, exploiting shared frequencies, shared protocols, shared assumptions. Ships slammed into emergency shutdowns to prevent overload. Hundreds went blind simultaneously. Human ships surged forward, not to kill, but to separate. Varex watched his armada unravel and finally understood the truth. Humans were not fighting a war. They were executing a procedure, a controlled dismantling, a solution. An aide spoke in a broken voice. Commander, we cannot maintain cohesion. Varex closed his eyes for a brief moment. For the first time in his life, he felt the weight of history pressing down on him. Not as glory, but as judgment. Open a channel to Earth, he said quietly. The aide froze. Sir, open it. Seconds passed. Then a single human figure appeared on the screen. No crown, no armor, just a uniform and calm eyes. This is Earth, the human said. State your purpose. Varex swallowed his pride. This is High Commander Varex of the Imperial Armada. We demand. The human raised a hand slightly. No, he said evenly. You asked for this channel. Varex hesitated. The silence stretched. Finally, the human spoke again. You believed we were weak because we were quiet. You believed we were divided because we argued. You believed we were unprepared because we did not stand in your councils. The human leaned forward slightly. You were wrong. The channel cut. On the Imperial flagship, alarms flared again, louder, closer, more urgent. A final system alert blinked onto Varex's display. Human defense layers, 38% unrevealed. Varex stared at it, breath shallow. They hadn't even shown everything yet. And for the first time, the Empire understood something far more terrifying than defeat. Humanity was still holding back. The Imperial Armada no longer looked like an armada. From the bridge of the flagship, High Commander Varex watched the once perfect formations dissolve into scattered clusters of ships, each group acting on partial data, delayed orders, and growing fear. The Empire's greatest strength, its unity, was being cut apart piece by piece. Status, Varex said, his voice low. An officer answered without looking up. Fleet cohesion has dropped below 70%. Multiple captains are requesting independent command authority. Varix felt a cold twist in his chest. That request alone told him how bad things were. Imperial doctrine forbade independent command in major engagements. Unity was law. Obedience was survival. Granting it meant admitting control was already lost. Deny the request, he said. But sir, deny it. The officer nodded, though the hesitation lingered. Orders went out. Many were not acknowledged. Across the battlefield, Imperial ships tried to regroup, but every movement triggered new failures. Engines lagged. Sensors contradicted each other. Weapons locked onto targets that vanished an instant later. And still, Earth remained untouched. No planetary shields flared. No mass drivers fired from the surface. No desperate counterattack rose from the planet below. I watched it. On Earth, inside a vast underground chamber carved into ancient rock, human commanders stood before a wall of shifting data. No raised voices. No panic. Just quiet concentration. A junior analyst spoke first. They're attempting to reassert centralized command. A fleet commander nodded. Expected. Another officer glanced up. Multiple Imperial captains are breaking formation anyway. Fear is spreading. Good, the Admiral said. Fear makes them predictable. He gestured to the display. Begin exposure. Across the Imperial fleet, something changed. Human ships that had stayed at the edges suddenly became visible, fully visible. Their signatures sharpened. Their numbers appeared larger than before. Imperial sensors finally saw them clearly and misunderstood them completely. Commander, an officer shouted. Human reinforcements detected. Large-scale fleet movement. Varix's head snapped up. The display showed dozens, no, hundreds, of human vessels emerging from behind Earth's moon, from deep orbital shadows, from places Imperial scans had written off as empty. They're bringing their full strength, an aide said. Now. Varix's instincts screamed warning. No, he muttered. This is wrong. But the Empire had one answer to overwhelming force. More force. All remaining fleets, Varix ordered, converge on human ships. Full fire authorization. Imperial weapons lit the void. Beams, missiles, kinetic slugs. Everything the Empire used to erase resistance flooded toward the human fleet. And hit nothing. The human ships scattered instantly, breaking into smaller groups, slipping through the gaps between fire arcs with impossible precision. Imperial weapons tore through empty space, overlapping, interfering, wasting energy. Then the humans struck again. This time, they targeted logistics. Fuel tenders vanished. Supply ships lost engines. Repair vessels were disabled before they could react. Ammunition carriers went silent. The Empire's war machine began to starve in real time. On one Imperial carrier, the captain slammed his claws against the command rail. Why are they not engaging us directly? He roared. An officer answered quietly. Because they don't need to. Moments later, the carrier lost power. Human boarding teams entered again. The same calm. The same silence. The same efficiency. An Imperial officer, hands raised, stared at the human leading the team. Why don't you finish us? He asked. Why not destroy the ship? The human paused, as if considering the question. Because destruction is loud, he replied. And we're almost done. Back on the flagship, Varix watched casualty reports climb, not in deaths, but in losses of function. Ships were being taken out of the fight without being destroyed. Crews were alive. Fleets were intact. But useless. They're preserving us, an aide whispered. Why? Varix understood before the answer came. They want witnesses. A new alert appeared. Planetary defense platforms, previously inactive, began to rise from Earth's atmosphere. Massive structures unfolded from the planet's shadow, revealing weapons the Empire had never seen. They did not fire. They simply aimed. Every Imperial commander saw them. Every Imperial soldier felt it. Earth had not shown its strength at the start. It had waited until the Empire could no longer escape. Commander, an officer said, voice shaking. Hyperspace lanes are destabilizing. Jump calculations are failing across the system. Varix felt the last piece click into place. They've sealed the system, he said softly. Yes, sir. The realization crushed him. The Empire had marched into a cage. On Earth, the Admiral exhaled slowly. They're contained. Phase 3, an officer asked. Phase 3, the Admiral confirmed. Across the system, human ships stopped retreating. They advanced. Not chaotically, not in rage. In lines. Clean, deliberate formations that cut Imperial space into sections. Each movement forced Imperial ships into narrower zones, herding them like livestock. Varix watched it happen and knew the truth. This was not a battle. This was an execution in slow motion. He straightened, forcing authority back into his voice. Open a channel. All Imperial forces. Priority command. Static answered him. Then fragments. Some captains responded. Many did not. Imperial forces, Varix said, his voice broadcast as widely as systems allowed. Hold position. Maintain discipline. The Empire endures. Even as he spoke, another command ship went dark. Another fleet cluster lost propulsion. The words felt hollow as soon as they left his mouth. On the human command floor, a younger officer hesitated. Sir, should we accelerate the timetable? Casualties are still minimal, but... The Admiral shook his head. No. He looked at Earth on the display. Let them understand. The final blow did not come as an explosion. It came as silence. Human systems reached deep into Imperial networks. Not hacking, but unbinding. Shared protocols failed. Backup systems conflicted. Emergency overrides locked each other out. Imperial ships drifted. Hundreds of them. Thousands. A fleet that had conquered half the galaxy was now a field of powerless metal around a single blue planet. Varix stood alone on the bridge, the noise fading, the alarms quieting one by one. An aide approached hesitantly. Commander, we are receiving another transmission from Earth. Varix nodded slowly. Display it. The same human appeared on the screen. Calm. Unmoved. This is Earth, he said. The engagement is decided. Varix swallowed. You could have destroyed us. Yes, the human replied. But then you would have learned nothing. The human's gaze was steady. You came to conquer. We responded to survive. What happens now? Varix asked. The human did not answer immediately. Instead, behind him, a new line appeared on the screen. Simple, stark, impossible to ignore. Phase 3 complete final layers, classified. Varix felt a chill deeper than fear. Humanity was not finished. And whatever came next would change the galaxy forever. Silence spread across the Sol system like a held breath. Thousands of Imperial ships drifted without power, without formation, without certainty. Engines were locked in safe mode. Weapons were frozen behind failed authorization loops. Even emergency beacons flickered and died as if space itself refused to carry their cries. High Commander Varix stood unmoving on the bridge of the flagship. For the first time since leaving Imperial space, there were no alarms. That absence terrified him more than noise ever had. Commander, a navigation officer said quietly. External telemetry confirms. We are stationary. Varix did not respond. Around him, the bridge crew moved with slow, careful motions, like beings afraid that sudden movement might shatter reality. Displays that once overflowed with data now showed stillness, too much of it. The Empire had always believed motion was dominance. Stillness was defeated. On Earth, the human command chamber dimmed slightly as systems shifted state. Large sections of the wall displays changed color, from red and amber to a calm, steady blue. Containment complete. A senior strategist folded his arms. They're fully immobilized. Confirmed, an analyst replied. No fleet-scale movement possible. Individual systems are locked behind cascading safety protocols. Casualties? The Admiral asked. Minimal. Enemy crews remain alive across the majority of vessels. The Admiral nodded once. As intended. A pause followed. Then the Admiral spoke again, softer this time. Prepare the message. Out in space, the Imperial flagship finally received a priority signal that did not degrade. Varix straightened instinctively. On screen, the human appeared once more. Same calm expression. Same steady posture. But this time, something else was visible behind him. Earth. Not as a distant sphere, but as a live image, sharp and clear. Clouds rolled over oceans. Sunlight brushed the curve of the planet. Cities glowed faintly on the dark side, steady and unafraid. This is Earth, the human said. You came with an armada. Varix forced himself to speak. We came to enforce the Imperial order. The human nodded slightly. We know. You dismantled our fleet, Varix said. You could end us now. Why haven't you? The human's gaze did not waver. Because annihilation would be mercy. The words landed heavier than any weapon. Varix felt his throat tighten. Then what do you intend? To conclude the lesson. Behind the human, new data streams appeared, visible even to Imperial sensors now relinked just enough to observe. They were records. Imperial conquests. Burned worlds. Broken treaties. Species erased not out of necessity, but convenience. Varix recoiled slightly. Those records are restricted. Yes, the human replied. They were. The Admiral's voice carried no anger. Only certainty. You believed humanity was dangerous because we fought each other. You assumed that meant we were unfit to face you. Varix said nothing. You never asked what happened when we stopped fighting ourselves. The image shifted. Historical footage. Human wars. Nuclear fire. Starving cities. Collapsing nations. Then reconstruction. Cooperation. Planetary defense councils. Systems built not for glory, but survival. You looked at our past, the human continued, and assumed it was our present. The feed changed again. Hidden shipyards beneath asteroids. Defense grids buried inside moons. Satellites older than the Empire itself, upgraded quietly, patiently. We did not build an empire, the human said. We built a shield. On the flagship, an officer whispered. They weaponized restraint. Varix closed his eyes briefly. Commander, the human said. You were sent here because the Empire believes fear is the only stable order. Yes, Varix replied hoarsely. And it works. It worked, the human corrected. Until now. The channel cut. Immediately, Imperial ships across the system received synchronized access to a single data package. No encryption. No compression. Pure clarity. A full recording of the engagement, from humanity's perspective. Imperial captains watched in stunned silence, as their every move unfolded exactly as predicted. Every maneuver countered before it began. Every escalation anticipated. They had not been outgunned. They had been outthought. Panic spread, not loud, but deep. On one disabled destroyer, an Imperial lieutenant sank into a command chair. We were never meant to win, he whispered. No, his captain replied quietly. We were meant to be stopped. Back on Earth, the Admiral watched the Imperial fleet through distant sensors. Thousands of ships. Thousands of crews. All alive. All channels open, he said. His voice carried across the system. To every Imperial vessel, the Admiral said. This conflict ends now. He let the words settle. You will not be destroyed. You will not be enslaved. You will not be chased. A ripple of disbelief passed through Imperial ranks. You will return home, the Admiral continued. And you will carry what you witnessed. Varix's eyes widened. You're releasing us? Yes. Why? The Admiral leaned forward slightly. Because the galaxy listens to survivors. A long silence followed. Then Varix spoke, voice stripped of pride. If we leave, what stops us from returning with greater force? The Admiral did not hesitate. You. Varix frowned. Me? You will report exactly what happened here. You will show them the recordings. You will explain the cost of misunderstanding us. And if they ignore me? The Admiral's eyes hardened, just slightly. Then next time, he said, we won't stop at dismantling. Behind him, Earth's planetary platforms powered up fully for the first time. Not firing, demonstrating. Energy readings spiked to levels that made Imperial instruments scream. Varix felt the truth settle like stone in his chest. Humanity has been merciful, and mercy, in this moment, was more terrifying than destruction. Moments later, Imperial systems unlocked, partially. Engines rebooted under strict parameters. Navigation returned, but only outward paths were viable. The cage opened. One direction. Home. As the Armada began its slow withdrawal, human ships held position, watching, unmoving. No pursuit. No triumph. Just vigilance. Varix remained on the bridge until the last human signal faded from his displays. Only then did he allow himself to sit. The Empire had sent him to conquer a weak world. Instead, he had met a species that understood power well enough to limit it. As the flagship turned away from Earth, Varix looked back one final time at the blue planet. And for the first time in his life, he hoped the Empire would listen. Because humanity had shown restraint once, they might not do so again. The Imperial Armada withdrew in silence. No victory signals were broadcast. No rallying cries echoed across Imperial channels. The once proud fleet moved as a wounded animal moved, slow, cautious, aware of unseen teeth at its back. High Commander Verex remained on the bridge as stars stretched into lines and the Sol system began to fall behind them. Hyperspace swallowed the flagship, but the weight in his chest did not lift. Around him, officers spoke in hushed tones. Some stared at their consoles without blinking. Others avoided looking at the view screen, as if afraid Earth might still be watching. The Empire had survived defeats before. It had never survived humiliation. When the Armada emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Imperial territory, word had already spread. Emergency signals sent during the retreat had reached core worlds ahead of them, fragmented, confused, stripped of context. What arrived afterward was clarity. Recordings, complete, unedited battle data, human broadcasts, tactical breakdowns. The dismantling of the Armada, shown from angles no Imperial sensor had ever captured. The Empire saw itself as the humans had seen it, and it did not like the reflection. In the capital world, the Imperial High Council convened in an emergency session. The chamber, once filled with confidence and ritual, now felt smaller, tighter, as if the walls themselves were listening. Verex stood at the center, stripped of ceremonial armor. No banners, no honors, only the truth. Report, demanded Counselor Threx, his voice sharp with barely contained anger. Explain how the greatest fleet in our history failed to subjugate a single planet. Verex did not bow. They did not defeat us by force, he said evenly. They defeated us by preparation. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. That is an excuse, another counselor snapped. No species prepares for the Empire. They prepared for survival, Verex replied. And survival made them dangerous. He gestured, and the chamber filled with images. Earth's hidden defenses, layered systems activating one after another, Imperial ships losing cohesion in real time. They studied us, Verex continued. Not our weapons. Our habits. Our pride. Our certainty. Counselor Threx scoffed. They showed mercy. That proves weakness. Verex's eyes hardened. No. It proves control. Silence fell. They could have erased us, Verex said. They chose not to, because destruction was not their goal. Deterrence was. Another counselor leaned forward slowly. You're saying they let us live to spread fear? Yes, Verex said. And it worked. The chamber erupted in debate. Some called for immediate rearmament. Others demanded vengeance. A few, quieter voices spoke of caution. Verex watched them argue and felt something shift inside him. This was how empires died. Not on fire. In denial. Far away, in the Sol system, Earth did not celebrate. Human fleets returned to hidden orbits. Defense platforms powered down to standby. Cities relit. Life resumed. Not triumphantly, but steadily. On the surface, people went back to work. Children went to school. Oceans rolled as they always had. Only a few understood how close the galaxy had come to burning. In a secure chamber beneath Earth's crust, the Admiral met with senior commanders. The mood was quiet. Reflective. They're arguing, an intelligence officer reported. The Empire is split. Some factions want immediate retaliation. Others are pushing for reform. The Admiral nodded. Expected. Do you think they'll listen? Another asked. The Admiral did not answer right away. He studied a projection of the Imperial capital, vast, ancient, proud. Some will, he said finally. Some won't. And if they come back, then we'll finish the lesson. A younger officer hesitated. Was mercy the right choice? The Admiral turned to face him. Mercy was not for them, he said. It was for the galaxy. Beyond Imperial space, other civilizations watched closely. Smaller powers that had lived in fear for generations replayed the recordings in disbelief. Merchant leagues froze expansion plans. Border wars halted overnight. For the first time in centuries, the Empire's shadow no longer stretched unchallenged. Whispers spread. Earth was not a prize. Earth was a boundary. In distant systems, old star charts were updated. Human space was marked differently now, not as unexplored, not as irrelevant, but as restricted. Do not provoke. Do not test. Do not approach with weapons. On the Imperial flagship, Verex stood alone in his quarters, staring at a paused image of Earth on his display. The blue planet looked peaceful, ordinary. He understood now why the humans had survived. They did not mistake peace for weakness. An aide knocked softly. Commander, the Council has issued provisional orders. Verex turned. Read them. They want to begin rebuilding. Larger fleets. New doctrines. They believe the humans revealed too much. Verex closed his eyes. They revealed exactly what they wanted us to see, he said quietly. And what is that? That we were never fighting them, Verex replied. We were fighting about the future. The aide said nothing. Verex straightened. Prepare my full report. No edits. No omissions. The aide hesitated. Some counselors won't like it. Verex's gaze was steady. Then they need it most. Across the galaxy, historians began rewriting their records. The Imperial invasion of Earth was renamed in quiet drafts. Not a campaign. Not a battle. A mistake. On Earth, the Admiral stood before a viewport, watching the stars. Humanity had not claimed territory, had not demanded tribute, had not crowned itself ruler of anything. It had done something far more disruptive. It said no, and backed it with absolute certainty. The galaxy would not forget that, because from that moment forward, every empire would remember one simple truth. Humanity did not seek war, but when war came to them, they ended it on their terms. The galaxy did not settle after the Armada returned. It tilted. Across Imperial space, border alarms stayed active long after the fleet docked. Shipyards worked without pause. Military academies rewrote simulations that had not changed in centuries. Admirals who once spoke with certainty now argued in conditional language. If the humans did this once, if they hid that much, if they chose mercy, those ifs infected everything. High Commander Verex was summoned again, this time not to the High Council chamber, but to the inner sanctum beneath it. Only the most serious matters were discussed there. Matters of survival. The chamber doors sealed behind him with a sound that felt final. At the center of the room sat the Emperor. Not a towering figure. Not armored. Just old, sharp-eyed, and very still. You faced the humans, the Emperor said. Yes, Verex replied. And you returned alive. Yes. The Emperor studied him for a long moment. That was not expected. Verex said nothing. Explain, the Emperor said calmly. Verex activated the holotable. The room is filled with the Sol system. Earth at the center. Imperial fleets dissolve around it. Human movements are precise, restrained, deliberate. They did not fight for dominance, Verex said. They fought for control of the outcome. The Emperor leaned forward slightly. A distinction without meaning. With respect, Verex replied. It has all the meaning. He highlighted data streams. They disabled us without triggering our escalation protocols. They preserved crews. They prevented retreat until the message was delivered. And the message? The Emperor asked. Verex hesitated. That the Empire is predictable, he said. And that humanity is not. Silence followed. The Emperor's fingers tapped once against the armrest. They let you leave. Yes. Why? Verex met his gaze. Because they wanted the story to spread. The Emperor's eyes narrowed. Fear, then? No, Verex said. Perspective. Another silence, longer this time. Do you believe, the Emperor asked slowly, that they could destroy us if they wished? Verex did not answer immediately. He remembered Earth's platforms powering up, not firing, just showing. He remembered the line of text that chilled him more than any explosion. Final layers, classified. Yes, Verex said at last. I believe they could. The Emperor closed his eyes. For a brief moment, the weight of centuries settled visibly on his shoulders. Then why haven't they? The Emperor asked. Verex's voice was steady. Because destruction would force them to rule the aftermath. And they do not want to rule. That answer disturbed the room more than fear ever could. Meanwhile, beyond Imperial borders, the rest of the galaxy reacted. Trade coalitions paused expansion into contested regions. Pirate fleets rerouted far from human-marked space. Ancient species that had survived by hiding began to speak openly again. A single idea spread faster than any broadcast. The Empire can be stopped. Not defeated in legend. Not resisted in myth. Stopped. Cleanly, decisively, without burning stars. That idea was dangerous. On Earth, the Admiral was aware of all of it. Reports flowed in from listening posts scattered across quiet systems. The galaxy was watching humanity now, not as a curiosity, but as a constant variable. They're adjusting their maps, an intelligence officer said. Human space is being reclassified. To what? The Admiral asked. The officer hesitated. Neutral, but untouchable. The Admiral nodded once. Good. A pause followed. Another officer spoke carefully. There's concern among allied systems. They're asking what comes next. And, the admiral asked. They're afraid we'll take advantage of the shift. The admiral turned from the viewport. We didn't do this to gain leverage, he said. We did it to remove pressure. But power attracts expectation, the officer replied. Yes, the admiral said quietly. That's the burden. He dismissed the room and remained alone, looking out at Earth. Humanity had won without conquering. Now came the harder part. Restraint under observation. Back in Imperial space, the High Council fractured. One faction argued the encounter proved the need for immediate, overwhelming retaliation, new weapons, new doctrines, no mercy next time. Another faction argued the opposite, that provoking humanity again would be suicide. Varix watched the arguments from the edges. He recognized the pattern. The Empire had always answered fear with force. Now fear was turning inward. When the final vote was called, it was split. The Emperor broke the tie. All direct action against Earth is suspended, he decreed. Indefinitely. Gasps filled the chamber. This is not surrender, the Emperor continued. This is recalibration. Some counselors bowed. Others stared in disbelief. Varix felt no triumph. Only relief mixed with dread. Because empires that paused rarely stayed paused. They either adapted, or they broke. Months passed. The galaxy adjusted. Human trade opened carefully, selectively. No fleets. No demands. Just presence. Earth spoke less than others expected. But when it did, it spoke clearly. Do not expand aggressively. Do not erase weaker species. Do not mistake silence for absence. Those statements carried weight now. On a distant world once stripped by Imperial mining fleets, reconstruction began, quietly assisted by anonymous human logistics ships that arrived, unloaded, and left without ceremony. No flags. No speeches. Just help. Varix learned of this through intelligence channels. It unsettled him more than war ever had. They're reshaping perception, one analyst muttered. Yes, Varix agreed. Without asking permission. Years later, historians would debate the moment the Imperial Age truly ended. Some would point to the battle near Earth. Others to the Council's vote. But Varix knew the truth. It ended when the Empire realized it could no longer force the future. On Earth, the Admiral stood down from command. Not in disgrace. Not in celebration. Simply because his role was finished. Humanity had shown what it needed to show. The rest would be lived. As he walked away from the command chamber for the last time, a junior officer asked him a question that had been echoing across the galaxy. Sir, if they hadn't attacked us first, would we ever have revealed ourselves? The Admiral stopped. He thought of centuries of silence, of patience, of preparation. Then he answered. No, he said. We would have stayed quiet. He paused, then added. But they needed to know. And far away, across stars that no longer felt so distant, the Empire remembered that lesson every time it looked towards Sol. Humanity had not ended in Armada. It had ended in assumption. And nothing frightened the galaxy more than that. The first real test came without warning. It did not arrive as an Armada. It did not announce itself with conquest broadcasts or formal declarations. It arrived as noise. Across the outer spiral, human listening posts detected subtle disturbances. Merchant convoys vanishing along safe lanes. Border skirmishes blamed on pirates that moved with military discipline. Old Imperial client states suddenly rearming far beyond treaty limits. Someone was probing the silence. On Earth, the warning reached the Planetary Defense Council during a routine cycle. No alarms blared. No emergency lights flashed. Just a quiet priority alert sliding to the top of the queue. The Admiral, older now, slower, but still sharp, read the report once. Then again. They're testing boundaries, he said. A junior strategist nodded. Not the Empire directly. Proxy forces. Private fleets. Plausible deniability. They want to see if the lesson stuck, another officer added. The Admiral leaned back slightly. Or if we're tired. Humanity did not mobilize. That was the first surprise. Instead of fleets, Earth dispatched observers, small, unarmed vessels broadcasting open transponders. They did not interfere. They did not threaten. They watched and recorded everything. Across the galaxy, factions noticed. Imperial hardliners took it as confirmation of weakness. They hesitate, one warlord said during a closed council. They hesitate now because they fear consequence. Others were less confident. They hesitate because they don't need to rush, an older commander replied. That's worse. The proxy fleet struck anyway. A neutral trade hub burned. A border colony was seized. Civilians were displaced. The attackers avoided human space carefully, but not carefully enough. Every action was logged. Every pattern mapped. On Earth, the Defense Council convened. "They've crossed the threshold," a strategist said. "Not against us directly, but against the balance we enforced." The admiral nodded. "Then it's time." "Full response?" someone asked. "No," the admiral replied. "Demonstration." Human fleets did not surge outward. Instead, something else happened. Across Imperial and non-Imperial space alike, navigation systems updated simultaneously. New advisories appeared, automatically synced through trade networks humanity had quietly integrated into over the years. Notice: security reclassification in effect. Regions marked red are under human observation. No threats. No ultimatums. Just information. The warlords laughed. Until their ships began failing inspections at every neutral port. Until fuel contracts vanished. Until insurance algorithms, based on human risk models, classified their fleets as unsupportable liabilities. The galaxy did not need to be forced. It needed to be convinced. The proxy fleets found themselves isolated within weeks. Crews deserted. Captains defected. Ships were abandoned mid-transit when resupply failed. Those that continued pressed on anyway, desperate, angry, cornered. That was when humanity moved. Not everywhere. Just once. A single task force emerged near a contested system. A system the Empire once stripped bare, now struggling to rebuild. Human ships arrived openly. Not hidden. Not fast. They positioned themselves between the proxy fleet and the planet. And waited. The proxy commander broadcast a challenge. Threats. Claims of sovereignty. Promises of annihilation. The human fleet did not respond. Then the proxy fleet fired. The response lasted 12 seconds. Human weapons did not destroy the fleet. They froze it. Every ship locked in place as if caught in amber. Drives stalled. Power flows halted at safe limits. Weapon systems shut down before overheating. The human task force held position for exactly 1 minute. Then it withdrew, leaving the proxy fleet intact. And helpless. The message traveled faster than light ever could. Humanity did not need to crush you. Humanity could pause you. In Imperial space, High Commander Verex watched the footage in silence. The Emperor sat beside him, unmoving. "They didn't even speak," the Emperor murmured. "They didn't need to," Verex replied. "The galaxy speaks for them now." The Emperor closed his eyes. "We built our power on fear," he said. "They built theirs on inevitability." Silence filled the chamber. Elsewhere, smaller civilizations took notice. Some reached out to Earth quietly, cautiously, asking questions humanity had never been asked before. Not about weapons. About governance. About restraint. About how to survive without becoming monsters. Earth answered selectively. Humanity did not offer protection. It offered standards. Follow them, and you would not stand alone. Break them, and you would face consequences, measured, precise, unavoidable. On Earth, the Admiral watched reports scroll across his terminal long after midnight. The galaxy was changing faster now, and change always attracted danger. A final report arrived, classified, delayed, carefully worded. Imperial black programs were stirring again. Not fleets, not invasions. Research. Weapons designed not to overwhelm humanity, but to negate it. Verex sent the report personally. The Admiral read it slowly. Then he smiled, just a little. "They still think this is about arms," he said. A younger officer frowned. "Isn't it?" The Admiral shook his head. "It never was." He stood and looked at Earth once more, at the quiet cities, the fragile atmosphere, the world that had learned survival the hard way. Humanity has shown mercy, had shown power, had reshaped the balance without ruling it. Now the galaxy was waiting to see if humanity would harden, or remain what it had proven to be. A line, not crossed. And somewhere deep in Imperial space, buried beneath secrecy and fear, someone finally asked the most dangerous question of all. What if humanity is right? The answer to that question had not arrived yet, but it was coming. And when it did, it would not come with fleets. It would come with a choice. The choice arrived quietly. No fleets gathered. No borders flared red. No emergency councils were called in panic. Instead, invitations appeared. Encrypted, authenticated, undeniable. Across the galaxy, leaders of major powers, Imperial remnants, neutral coalitions, ancient civilizations that had avoided politics for millennia, received the same message, translated perfectly into their native forms of thought. A conclave will be held. Location, neutral deep space. Purpose, stability. Attendance, voluntary. Security, guaranteed. No signature. Everyone knew who sent it. The Empire debated for days. Hardliners demanded refusal. Others argued that absence would be seen as fear. High Commander Verex watched the arguments play out with growing exhaustion. "They're not summoning us to surrender," he said finally. "They're asking us to participate." The Emperor listened in silence. "And if this is a trap?" a counselor hissed. Verex met his gaze. "Then it will be the most unnecessary trap in history." The Emperor made the decision himself. "We will attend," he said. "Not as rulers. As observers." The conclave was held in open space around a dead star. No gravity well, no territory, no advantage. Human constructs formed a simple ring of platforms. Unarmed, transparent, almost fragile-looking. Nothing hidden. That, too, unsettled everyone. Delegations arrived one by one. Ships kept their distance. Weapons remained cold. Sensors swept constantly, searching for threats that never appeared. When humanity arrived, it was not with a fleet. It was with a single vessel. Plain, moderate in size. No visible weapons. It docked at the central platform and powered down. The delegates watched, waiting for the ceremony, waiting for dominance. None came. A human representative stepped forward, unadorned, unguarded. "We didn't call this conclave to lead you," the human said calmly. "We called it because the galaxy is unstable, and instability always finds us eventually." Murmurs spread. An Imperial counselor rose first. "You paralyzed fleets without firing a shot. You isolated entire regions economically. You reshaped borders without conquest. You already lead." The human shook their head. "No, we limit ourselves." "Is there a difference?" the counselor demanded. "Yes," the human replied. "Leadership demands obedience. Limits only demand awareness." Another delegate spoke, a being whose species had survived by hiding inside nebulae for centuries. "What do you want?" they asked. The human paused, choosing words carefully. "We want the same thing we've always wanted," they said. "To live without preparing for extinction every generation." The room fell quiet. "That requires rules," the human continued. "Not ours. Shared ones." A projection appeared, simple principles, not treaties. No forced expansion. No eradication of sentient species. No weaponization of total annihilation. Transparency in fleet-scale movements. The Empire's delegates stiffened. "These are constraints," one snapped. "On power." "Yes," the human replied. "Power without constraint collapses. History proves that." Verex felt the words settle painfully close to home. "What happens?" an Imperial hardliner asked coldly. "To those who refuse." The human met his gaze. "You've already seen that." Silence. The conclave did not end with applause. It ended with something far more dangerous. Agreement. Not unanimous. Not enthusiastic. But enough. Enough to shift gravity. In the weeks that followed, something unprecedented happened. The galaxy slowed down. Border conflicts paused mid-escalation. Fleets broadcast intentions before moving. Weapons programs were shelved, not dismantled, but restrained. Not because humanity demanded it, because no one wanted to be the next lesson. On Earth, the Admiral, now fully retired, watched the reports with cautious eyes. "Stability isn't peace," he said to a younger officer visiting him. "It's tension that hasn't snapped yet." "But it's working," the officer said. "Isn't it?" The Admiral nodded. For now, far away, in a research facility buried beneath an Imperial moon, scientists worked in silence. Not on weapons of destruction, but on something else. Counters. Methods to resist paralysis. To mask fleets. To move without being seen. Old habits died hard. Verex learned of it months later. He closed the report and stared out at the stars. "They still don't understand," he murmured. On Earth, humanity sensed the shift too. Not fear. Pressure. Humanity has become a constant factor. A balancing weight. And weights, if unmoving too long, became targets. The Planetary Council debated the future. Some argued for deeper involvement, alliances, enforcement fleets, stronger presence. Others warned against becoming what they had stopped. The deciding voice was quiet. We draw the line once, the admiral said, brought in for counsel. And we defend it. We do not chase beyond it. What if the galaxy changes again? Someone asked. It will, he replied. That's not our job to prevent, only to survive. Years passed. The Empire adapted, slower, smaller, less certain. Other powers rose carefully. Humanity remained still, watching, listening, preparing. Then, one day, a message arrived at Earth's deepest command vault. Not hostile, not probing, not afraid, curious. It came from a species older than the Empire, older than most stars' stable cycles. A species that had watched countless civilizations rise and fall without intervening. Their message was simple. You did what empires could not. You ended a cycle without replacing it. Why? The response took time. When it came, it was just as simple. Because replacing it would restart the cycle. The galaxy took note. Humanity has not claimed the future. It had made room for it. And in doing so, it had changed the most dangerous thing of all. Expectation. No one waited for humanity to rule. But everyone remembered where the line was drawn. And as the stars continued their ancient motion, one truth held steady across the void. Humanity did not conquer the galaxy. It taught it to stop, just long enough, to choose a different path.